this book, he came up with the concept of the 8 evil thoughts. The 8 evil thoughts, then Cashin, who was a disciple of Evagrius, he took the 8 evil thoughts, combined 2 of them, combined another 2, added 1. That's the 7 deadly sins. And then he brought that west, and then Gregory the Great kind of
Interesting.
So, but Cashin learned of the 8 evil thoughts from Evagrius since he was his disciple. So he's writing on the 8 evil thoughts. And this is an excerpt from his writing on anger. So bear with me. It's kind of a long paragraph, but it's really good.
Let's do it.
And this is what you reminded me of when you were saying that your marriage has been revelatory for you, as opposed to kind of hiding your sin. It's helped you to see it.
Mm-hmm.
He says, self-reform and peace are not achieved through the patience which others show us, but through our own long-suffering toward our neighbor. When we try to escape the struggle for long-suffering by retreating into solitude, those unhealed passions we take there with us are merely hidden, not erased. For unless our passions are first purged, solitude and withdrawal from the world not only foster them, but also keep them concealed, no longer allowing us to perceive what passion it is that enslaves us. On the contrary, they impose on us an illusion of virtue and persuade us to believe that we have achieved long-suffering and humility because there is no one present to provoke us and test us. But as soon as something happens which does arouse and challenge us, our hidden and previously unnoticed passions immediately break out like uncontrolled horses that have long been kept unexercised and idle, dragging their driver all the more violently and wildly to destruction. He then goes on for a while.
Keep going. Let's read the whole thing.
Okay.
Audiobook.
Okay.
Philokalia,
Yeah.
number 1. No, seriously. I really want you to keep reading.
Okay. Our passions grow fiercer when left idle through lack of contact with other people. Even that shadow of patience and long-suffering which we thought we possessed while we mixed with our brethren is lost in our isolation through not being exercised. Poisonous creatures that live quietly in their lairs in the desert display their fury only when they detect someone approaching. And likewise, passion-filled men who live quietly not because of their virtuous disposition, but because of their solitude, spit forth their venom whenever someone approaches and provokes them. This is why those seeking perfect gentleness must make every effort to avoid anger not only towards men, but also towards animals and even inanimate objects.
Oh, that's excellent. Keep going, please.
Oh.
Honestly. I mean, we can pause and comment on it, but immediately thought of people who throw the remote control and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's almost like this is an acceptable way of lashing out, but then when you're with people, you lash out in an analogous way.
Right. He says, there's just one more short paragraph. I can remember how when I lived in the desert, I became angry with the rushes, because they were either too thick or too thin. Or with a piece of wood when I wished to cut it quickly and could not. Or with a flint when I was in a hurry to light a fire and the spark would not come. So all-embracing was my anger that it was aroused even against inanimate objects.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I notice about the saints of the East, and I'm sure this is true of Western saints, I just notice it more in the East, is how they talk about their own failures very openly. Even current ones, not just things I've overcome and now I'm great, but
it's interesting because they talk about, what I'm struck by is they talk about it not with a spirit of despair. You know, it's like there's also a great trust in the mercy of God.
Yes.
Which I think is a sign of their sanctity, you know. Because it's so easy to think of our own sin and to fall into despair. That's why it's dangerous to look at our own sin without first putting ourselves in the presence of God, you know.
Yeah.
And that can be very dangerous. But I like that a lot because we've talked about this at the monastery because there can be this assumption that that the holy thing is to just like be a hermit, you know, be away from everything. And but that's not necessarily the best thing for us, at least for a certain time.
Yes.
So like in our monastery, in our Typicon, our rule of life, you have to be a life professed nun for several years. I think it's something like 15 years or something like that in order to then become a hermit, because it's like if you can't actually live in community, exactly. And so I see this in myself, this example, or this writing on anger by Cashin, every time I go on Pustynia. Or nearly every time. So it's like I go on Pustynia, I have this radical conversion from some kind of scripture, you know, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, floating. I love people.
Yep.
I love people. I am actually like, I can go out there and love anyone God puts in my path because I know how to love. Jesus has taught me. And then I come out of Pustynia at Compline and I'm like, they're late. Why are they late? Why is everyone late? Did anyone consider the fact that I'm here? Did anyone slip me a note? No one slipped me a note. They're just late. And then I'm like, I don't love people. As
you know,
like
you're paraphrasing the brothers Karamazov, since we already mentioned that.
Right,
the old woman who speaks to Father Zosima.
Uh-huh.
And she says, I find that the more I love humanity, the more I hate my neighbor, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Because humanity isn't late.
Right.
Humanity isn't inconsiderate. Humanity doesn't forget to bring their bins, like their garbage cans in all week.
Good Australian
People
flip.
bloody do. Yeah, exactly. But no, that is absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's, forgive me if I'm just repeating what I said with Father Boniface, but I do remember, prior to having kids especially, because when you're married and you don't have kids, provided that you and your wife get along well, my wife and I are very good friends, we'd basically want to do the same thing all the time. Like we'd hang out, we'd go to a movie, we'd go to a coffee shop, we'd do stuff. There was no imposition upon my will.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I had children, they don't care if you want to sleep. They don't care if you'd like to be at Mass and have a peaceful experience or pray the Holy Rosary or something like that. They're going to make impositions upon your will. And it's really then that I realized, wow, there's a lot of anger here. There's a lot of stuff that the Lord needs to heal. And I thank God for that, because I'm sure the Lord brings it. He's going to bring it up in one way or another. So how does that work with you? I mean, I guess because you live in tense community.
Mm-hmm. So we talk about there's this image. I don't know where it originated, so I don't know if this is an ancient thing or not. But there's an image that's used for the monastic life that I love. That it's like being in a rock tumbler. So all of us have these like rough edges, and we're just all knocked around, and the edges are hitting each other.
Yeah.
And somehow in doing that, we're smoothing each other out. But it's like, it's such a gift, and it's a painful gift, but it's like we talk about how like it's monasticism. We get this purification. We're all called to this purification, right? Monastics or otherwise. In the East, there's very much this clear idea of monasticism is like a sliding scale. It's like all people are called to live monasticism to the extent that they can within their vocation, within their life. And so we're all called to incorporate that. You know, I know a lot of married couples who like really incorporate monasticism into their home in beautiful ways. But like we're praying Vespers with your family tonight, so that's exciting. We set it on a recording now, so you have to make sure it actually happens. So anyways, but it's like in monasticism we get that purification, but in a much more like intensified way, which makes it very intensely painful, but also just like the reward and the fruits that we're receiving from it, and the joy in which we're living, and the freedom that we find is just incredible.
If you like that clip, be sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.